In the film business, Georgia is known as the Hollywood of the South. Is Ohio on its way to becoming the Hollywood of the Midwest? On the Business Courier front page centerpiece this week, for Cincinnati, that means lights, camera, and cha-ching. This is video of some of the movies that have been shot here over the past few years. The Ohio State Legislature voted this summer to double the film incentive tax credit from $20 million to $40 million. The incentive is expected to generate more than $80 million in economic activity for Ohio over the next year. A good chunk of it in greater Cincinnati, according to studies conducted at UC and Cleveland State University. Here's how the incentive works. If a production intends to spend $300,000 or more in the state of Ohio, it can apply for a tax credit of up to 30% of those in-state expenditures. After the movie is completed, the production company turns in financial documents and the tax credit is calculated and issued. The first film recruited by the incentive was The Ides of March, starring George Clooney. Film Cincinnati is the city's nonprofit film commission and actively recruits productions to Cincinnati. Kristen Schlottman is the executive director and joins Nikki Kingery, projects editor of the Business Courier, in the studio. Nikki and Kristen.
Thanks, Kelly. Kristen, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about how Cincinnati got so involved in the film industry?
Well, for those people that were here in the 80s and 90s, Cincinnati had a lot of motion pictures, and we looked a lot like a period New York. So we had some great success with movies like Rage in Harlem, 8 Men Out, Lost in Yonkers, to name a few. And then movies started chasing incentives, and that's about when I came to Cincinnati to work at the Film Commission. Movies were going to places like Canada or New Zealand, where they could get more production value for the American dollar. And they were leaving Los Angeles altogether and leaving the U.S. About 8 to 10 years ago, different U.S. states adopted motion picture incentives. Ohio adopted our program about 6 years ago. We took a long time to study what did work and what did not work in many states. And we have one of the best programs in the world right now. And it's truly not only attracting these movies, but then once they're here and with our help, they're coming back for repeat business. And that's what we're seeing this year.
What's the economic impact been like for the city thus far?
You know, for the last 2 years, before 2016, we saw about $54 million into the local economy. 2016, we've had over 10 motion pictures here in 1 year. It's our busiest year in 30 years, and we'll see that probably doubled in 1 year alone.
Wow. I think I read in the story that there were about 2,200 jobs created in the last 2 years as a result.
And those are the equivalent of full-time jobs. We don't just want a movie to come in and hire a local freelancer and then they're off for the next 3 months. We want sustainable work for locals, and these film jobs are now full-time work for locals. And we're not just seeing locals we're seeing people relocate to Cincinnati from Los Angeles and New York. We're seeing University of Cincinnati students graduating, and we're retaining that young talent here in Cincinnati. So I think that workforce development that you mentioned will continue to be enhanced with this program in years to come.
Do you see some other business opportunities, like support businesses around the industry?
Absolutely. You know, I was just working with Enterprise Rent-A-Car recently that just adopted their own motion picture arm of the business, and they've just brought 3 full-time people to work on the productions alone. And I'm anxiously looking for someone that does motion picture catering, because that's a part of this industry that we could really flourish here as well. But we're constantly hiring people, and we're seeing people that want to switch careers altogether, because Cincinnati has a booming industry now.
Oh, that's great. Well, we look forward to seeing a lot of movie crews on the street in the upcoming months.
I know, right? I mean, who would have thought that you'd be walking down the streets of Cincinnati and seeing John Travolta and Nick Cage? But more importantly than seeing the stars, it's really about the jobs and dollars that it's creating for locals. So while there is a lot of excitement, there honestly and sincerely is a major impact in our economy.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Kristen.
Thanks for having me.